Hey everyone, Greg here with Lens Pro to Go and Lens Rentals, and today I'm going to be covering something that came out a few years ago, and that's the Zoom F8. Now you might be wondering why we're deciding to cover it right now. Well, next week I'm going to be doing a ton of content covering 360 and VR recording audio and video, and the Zoom F8 is one of the recorders that is capable of recording and mixing ambisonic sound like something that comes out of the Sennheiser AMBEO VR microphone. So this video will just be a quick overview if you haven't heard of the Zoom F8 before, covering the build and the interface as well as some of the neat features about it, and then obviously some things to know before you start using it. So starting with the build, it has a full aluminum chassis and this thing is super durable. I wouldn't have any worries about it falling out of my bag and landing on a hard cement floor. It's going to be rock solid. It weighs just over 2 pounds, so it's not going to kill your neck if you have it around in a knapsack neck bag thing all day. And it keeps it in a small and compact size, so it's not really going to get in your way, especially if you're operating a boom at the same time. It has a nice little LCD display, which is super bright, and it even has an outdoor mode to brighten it up even more. Right next to that, there is a bunch of knobs. There's actually 8 knobs, one for each of the channels. So it's really nice to have all those tactile buttons for each channel individually to be able to adjust it and move your levels around. Going to the left side of the unit, you have 2 SD card slots, and each one of these slots can hold up to a 512 gigabyte SD card, so you're never going to run out of space, as well as being able to do a redundancy backup to the other card. So if you wanted to have a backup in case one of your cards fails, you can do that. And right below the SD card slots, you have 4 XLR inputs. These are all 48 volt phantom powerable, so you can power microphones from it. Above that, you have a 4-pin Hiroshi DC input. This is one of the 3 powering options to be able to power the unit when you're using it. I'll talk about the other 2 in a second, but let's switch over to the other side of the unit. You have the other 4 XLR inputs, again, all 48 volt phantom powerable. Above that, you have your main lines out for sending signal out to a camera or to another recorder or mixer, as well as having your headphone jack. And then spinning around to the back, you have your DC input for being able to power off wall power, and then also your battery slot where you can put in your AA batteries. It does take 8 AA's, which is quite a bit, so I would suggest finding one of those other options to power the unit. There's also a little blue input right next to that, and that's for using the Zoom mic capsules, which is something you see more on like the Zoom H6s, but you can plug a mic right into this if you wanted to record a track directly from the recorder. The last thing that's on the back is 2 SDIs. One is an SDI in and one is an SDI out for sending timecode. So you can send timecode directly from this recorder into your camera to be able to sync it up easier in post. Now that's basically the overview and the exterior of the F8. Let's take a look at some of the features, which makes this thing really cool and really user-friendly. On the front, you have PFL buttons for every single channel, and that basically jumps into the menu for each one of those and allows you to turn on your phantom power, any sort of limiters, and adjust all of those limiters individually so that you can really fine-tune it for whatever your situation is. Another great thing about the Zoom F8 is that it has an iOS app, so you can go in and you can change all of these settings that we've been talking about, as well as start and stop recording remotely without having to be right next to the unit. It also has a 6-second pre-record buffer, so if you're not ready as soon as the action starts or if somebody starts talking and you weren't rolling it, you have that little bit of a buffer time to start recording to make sure that you don't miss anything. Being one of Zoom's higher end recorders, it does have better preamps and a lower noise floor than something like the H6, so you're going to get cleaner audio right out of camera, and that's going to save you some time in post trying to clean it up. And going along with saving time, it does have that timecode out like I mentioned, so you can jam sync timecode to your camera, which will make syncing up easier and faster in post-production. And then the last little feature, which is really why we're doing this whole video, is that this recorder can record and mix ambisonic sound from something like a VR microphone, which is a really great thing to have, especially going into the new age and new technology of 360 and VR video. And lastly, I just want to go through a couple of the quirks and things that I've found after playing around with this for the past few weeks. And the first thing is that plug-in Zoom mic capsule thing on the back. You actually end up losing 2 of your channels when you plug in a mic into that. So you lose your channel 1 and 2, which leaves you with only 3 and 4. And if you're doing redundancy for all of those and recording a backup on a separate channel, that only gives you 4 inputs. On the front of the unit, there's all those buttons and knobs, which are really great to have, but the knobs are a little bit small, so if you have bigger fingers, it can be a little bit tricky and you might even be bumping some of the other channels when you're trying to adjust them. And then going back a little bit to what I just said about only having 4 channels, when you're doing a VR recording and you have a VR mic, that's using all 4 of those channels, so you're only going to be able to have 1 VR microphone off this if you're doing a redundancy backup at a lower decibel. So that's all that I have to tell you about the Zoom F8. I hope you guys got something out of this video, and definitely make sure to stay tuned for next week if you're interested in VR or 360 recording, as I have a bunch of different stuff coming out about setting up audio, setting up the camera, the post workflow, the publishing workflow, and all of that good stuff. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for new videos every single week, and I'll see you in the next one.